So yeah, if entity formation is kind of choosing the vehicle that you use to go onto the road and get to your destination, capitalization would be kind of the fuel that you add to get to where you want to go. And something we want to point out is this kind of typical timeline of capitalization of raising funds to fund your business. Now, initially, there'll probably be a lot of businesses that initially start out with founders' funds or raising money from those you know pretty well personally or from previous business relationships, your family and friends or angel investors who really believe in your idea and know you very well. Later on, you might be able to get a debt kind of loan from a bank, a financial institution, or something of that nature. And something we want to point out is that at this kind of early stage, really any kind of entity would work. You have a lot of flexibility in the type of vessel that would house that investment. However, later on, if you'd like to raise venture capital, go IPO in the future, you have to generally have to be a corporation in order to do so. So just something to keep in mind. Something we want to compare and contrast here, the different ways to raise these kind of initial funds. Of course, first up, we have the traditional sales of securities. This is highly regulated by the state and federal governments, so strongly recommend to consult a securities attorney before even offering to sell these securities. Essentially, a security would be anything that would represent some way for someone to make money without having primarily to do with their own efforts. And so anything that even seems like a security would be treated and regulated as such. And so a lot of the time you would only be allowed to sell securities that are publicly registered and all these disclosures have been made, except that is generally prohibitively expensive for early stage startups. And so generally you try to find some kind of exemption under which to sell these securities. Generally you have no advertising associated with these sales, and generally you want to only sell to either company insiders or accredited investors who the income guidelines are they've made at least $200,000 if they're single, or $300,000 if they're married, or they have a net worth of greater than $1 million, excluding the value of their primary residence. So quite wealthy individuals. Next up, we have the titled the Kickstarter method of capital raising. So essentially, you're making pre-orders, and so you won't. These are not considered to be sales of securities because the end is beneficiary. They're not hoping to get rich over the long haul. It's really you're selling this product or service that you will deliver on in the future. And finally, we have this equity-based crowdfunding. This is one of the newer variants. So instead of with traditional securities where you are raising a lot of money from a few wealthy investors, with equity-based crowdfunding, you'll be able to issue securities from your company to a lot of individuals for relatively small amounts. And of course, you only be able to sell these securities on a registered crowdfunding portal. And there are certain limits as to how much each investor could invest into the company, as well as how much equity the company would be able to sell. And the nice thing about the crowdfunding portal is that they would handle all of the income vetting for these prospective investors. I'm going to hand it off to Grace to talk about operational relationships.
Good morning, everyone. So I'd like to introduce operational relationship here. So when you have a company entity, so you need to set up relationships with the side. There are key players here. The first is capital provider like bankers, VC, angels, partners, and the other one is workers, your pillars of this. So the other one is suppliers and like your raw materials suppliers, your logistics suppliers, and others. The other is consumers. And we need to know basically the government requirement to separate the relationships with these people, and especially for the workers. There are three kinds of work here. The first one is employees. So in California, it's at a weird state, which means you can sign the employee contract agreement with the employees, and you can terminate, and the employee can terminate the contract at will. The other one is independent contracts. When you use independent contracts, which means when you have a project, you don't want to hire full-time employees. You can hire independent contracts. But the one thing you need to pay attention to is you may need to sign a very detailed contract with them and pay attention to the IP and the liability issues, because once he or she invents something, you need to decide who is the owner of the invention space. And the other one is volunteers and internship. If you are if you are an entity not for profits, that's okay. You hire volunteers or internships, but it's for profits. You must pay attention to it. It's highly regulated. You may need to pay taxes for them because it's regulated by department.
We passed out the different requirements for the employees and such. So next is
Yes, that's right. So going with the metaphor of the car, when you get a car, you get insurance. You could also take defensive driving classes. And when it comes to your company, managing risk, you may consider opening up an LLC. You don't have to do that, but whether or not you choose that or a sole proprietor, you may consider extra insurance. If you're doing a business that has food, you have other liability issues to worry about, so you want to consider that. Control your agents, any employees and volunteers that may fall under you, whatever they're doing, it's like you're doing it, so you want to set out the tasks for them, let them know what they should be doing and maybe what they should not be doing. You want to screen your employees, volunteers, everyone. Think about if you have a club and you're getting a bouncer. If that bouncer has a record, a history of beating up people and stuff, you're liable for knowing that. You should have checked it out beforehand. And supervise them carefully, train them, identify your agents, your employees. Again, you could be responsible for these people. So when you're doing your contracting with them, you want to share liability to, just parse it out then. Choose your activities carefully. Avoid any risky activities like a flamethrower while you're doing something with deep frying tools next to it. Not that you would be doing that, but just to be out there. Always think about duty of care and duty of loyalty, especially when you're in a board. Things that you may want for yourself doesn't come first. The organization comes first. And intellectual property. So here we talk about trade secrets, patents, copyrights, trademarks, and IP by contract. This is the fun stuff. Once you've got the branding and you have your business and it's well known, you want to make sure you protect it. Trade secrets, that's something that is like a secret sauce, like the KFC recipe. People don't know it, you don't put it out there, and you can protect it forever so long as it remains a secret. So when you get employees, you want to make sure that they know that that's your secret sauce. And when they're leaving your company, you remind them, have them sign things and just have it out there that it's secret, because once they're released from your company, you don't want them, giving out the recipe, and you want to be able to pinpoint it back to them. But it's difficult to be able to say that person was the one who shared the secrets. So that one is a little open, and that's why you might consider a patent. But a patent will only give you that protection for 20 years. So that type of thing will protect the product or a process of doing something. These are public documents, and when you file for them with the U.S. Trademark and Patent Office, you're giving all of the information for someone else to be able to do it. And once your patent expires in 20 years, it's most likely that someone else is going to be copying it. Copyrights. So to protect the content of created works, and you don't have to actually file for your copyright to have the protection. So if I do something right here and I draw something in front of you guys, or I write a poem, it's automatically copyright protected. But if one of you guys start using it on your social media and I want to go against you, I want to file it first in court, and then I have that copyright protection, and it dates back to whenever I did the actual work. But you may want to file it beforehand, like if you're doing big educational materials, because then you have more ability to sue someone like with fines. You can get a better outcome. For trademarks, that could be a slogan, a visual. Think of the Nike check, or also the just do it. You have different options there. And so long as you're using it in business, in the form of trade, wherever you put the categories on, you're going to get that protection, and you want to police your mark, because once you start be really famous, people might say that
going on an internet and doing an internet search is Googling something, you know, and you want to go out there and remind them that Google is big, but you're Google, you know, just like Xerox. Back in the day, to Xerox something became a generic term. They came out and they started, you know, doing a campaign, just letting everyone know that when you Xerox, it's using a Xerox machine, and they were able to claw back their trademark. So once you lose it, you can police it a little more and get it back to your business, but you don't want to get it to that point. And then IP by contract. So you want to, again, like with the trade secrets, you want to have your employees sign non-disclosure agreements. So this is, again, saying that when they leave the company or even when they're in it, whenever, they're not disclosing your secrets. And terms of use, you want to have that on your website and let people know how they're able to use any of the information on there. Also with IP by contract, when you have people doing stuff like a graphic designer doing stuff for your website, you want to be clear on who owns the designs or any work that they're doing.
We have a whole PowerPoint just on IP there.
Oh,
and then the last one, extra permits and licenses. We're on the home stretch.
Yeah, so now that you want to get on the road, you got to make sure that you have your driver's license, right? So this can be analogized to that. So the key questions here really for the permits you need to get are what activities you can do and where you can do those activities. So the first thing you'd have to do is let the municipality know that you're in business now and give them a way to reach you. So that's usually you would file the business license or DBA form, which is doing business as form, and that initiates your business. It's also sometimes referred to as the fictitious business name or application for business license. And so the next thing you'd have to look into is zoning. So within local municipalities, there's all sorts of restrictions for what certain zones can do or what you can do in certain zones. So some zones are fully residential, others are commercial. Some can even be a mix of residential and commercial. So that's also the next thing you need to look into. And without having this approval, you're at a risk for a major lawsuit. So anything you're doing then with your business is just subject to extreme risks if you've not registered it. So this is, one of the biggest things you can do. It's of paramount importance. And there's actually a good search engine to figure out. So apart from the DBA form and the zoning, there's also special permits that you may need to get depending on what your business is. This isn't for every business will have its own requirements. Every industry has its own requirements. And the way to look that up is on calgold.ca.gov. It's a fabulous website where you can just put in your industry. So like, for example, if you have a tattoo parlor, or if you have a restaurant, if you just look per the industry, you can look at all of the extra permits that would be required from that.
Great. So that's the whole acronym that we wanted to give you there. Business modeling, entity formation, capital. Let me go through it again. You have your plan for what you're going to be doing. You want to, once it gets into pretty good form, pretty sussed out, then you try and put it into an entity. And then that entity is going to need some capital to fuel it. You want to think about who else is in the car with you, your employees, your workers, your suppliers, and think about setting up those relationships carefully. You want to manage your risks by getting a limited liability entity, maybe some insurance, maybe papering some of the relationships so that you share liability. And then these extra permits and licenses you need to get out on the road, food permits, tattoo parlor permits, whatever, are easy to find in the state of California. And that's what we have for you, is how to get you out on the road and to be safe. So if you have any questions, and also, by the way, after this, good job. We're available to consult with you for free, confidential space about your business, and we're happy to do that here or now, or actually every other Wednesday. You can also contact us either by Skype or by phone, and we can provide some help at that point. Questions?
That's the phone number right there?
This is that's how you sign up for office hours there, and then you can use that phone number to get in touch with us there.
You guys did a great job.
I know.
All right.
Thank you.
Amazing job.
Good evening.
Thank you very much.